The storm had no mercy. Lightning cut across the sky like a giant blade, and the ground shook under the sound. Rain fell in thick sheets, drumming on the broken metal of a crashed ship. Inside the wreck, a single human struggled to breathe. His name was Ethan Cole, an engineer from the deep space vessel Solace 1. His ship had been caught in a strange energy storm near the edge of a red nebula. Now he was stranded on an unknown planet. His communication systems fried, his sensors blind. Ethan sat against the wall of his escape pod, shivering in the dim red light. His oxygen readout blinked. 48 hours left. He whispered to himself, "You've got 2 days, Cole. 2 days to find a way off this rock." Outside, the air shimmered like heat, even though it was cold. The storm here wasn't natural. It glowed faintly blue, as if the lightning was alive. He grabbed his pack, checked his pulse pistol, and pushed open the hatch. The wind screamed as he stepped out. The forest ahead looked alive too. The trees had silver leaves that moved even without wind. Strange orbs of light floated between them, vanishing when he got close. He felt like someone or something was watching. He walked for an hour, scanning for metal or energy readings. Nothing. The rain had turned the ground into thick mud. His boots sank deep with every step. He was about to turn back when he heard it. A cry. It was soft at first, like the sound of a wounded animal. But then he heard it again, clearer this time, a voice. A girl's voice. Ethan froze. "No human should be here." He turned his scanner toward the sound. The display flickered, then failed. Too much interference from the storm. He cursed under his breath and started walking toward the noise anyway. The voice came from a narrow gorge filled with glowing mist. At the bottom he saw her. A young alien girl lay in the mud, half covered by broken branches. Her skin glowed faintly blue, the same color as the lightning. Her hair, long and silver, was tangled with leaves. She wore something like armor, organic-looking plates that had been burned and cracked. Ethan hesitated. His first rule of survival was clear. Don't trust anything unknown. But she wasn't a threat now. She was hurt badly. He climbed down, kneeling beside her. She was breathing but weak. A deep wound ran across her shoulder, glowing like molten glass. When he touched her arm, she flinched and tried to move away. "Easy," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." Her eyes opened, bright and silver, almost like mirrors. She stared at him in confusion. He pointed to himself. "Ethan," then to her wound. "You're hurt. Let me help," she tried to speak. Her words were broken and strange, but one word came out clear. "Run." Then she passed out. Ethan looked around, scanning the forest. The storm had grown quieter, but he could still feel the air vibrating with energy. The hairs on his arms stood up. Somewhere far away, something howled. He sighed. "You're lucky I'm an idiot," he muttered. He picked her up carefully and began the long walk back to his crash site. The journey was slow. The girl was light, but every step was a struggle in the thick mud. By the time he reached his pod, the night had fallen, and the world outside had turned silver under 2 pale moons. Inside the shelter, Ethan laid her on a blanket and used his medkit to clean her wound. The skin sealed faster than human flesh, almost like it was alive. He injected a mild painkiller, not sure if it would even work on her biology. For a long while, he just watched her sleep. There was something peaceful about her face. She didn't look dangerous at all. She looked lost, just like him. He sat near the door, holding his pistol and watching the rain. "Great," he said to himself. "First alien contact, and it's a half-dead kid. Command would love this." Hours passed. The storm outside finally weakened. The strange lights in the forest returned, soft glowing orbs floating between the trees. At first, Ethan thought they were fireflies, but then they moved in patterns, circles, spirals, like they were forming a signal. He narrowed his eyes. "That's not natural." He grabbed his scanner again. The display flickered but showed faint heat signatures, multiple, moving closer. Ethan turned off his lamp. The inside of the pod went dark. He held his breath, listening. The rain stopped. Then footsteps, soft, many of them. The girl suddenly gasped in her sleep. Her eyes flew open. She sat up, breathing hard. "Hide," she whispered. Her voice was sharp now, filled with fear. Ethan looked around. "Hide from what?" She pointed to the door. "They come. Before he could ask, a shadow passed by the window, tall, moving gracefully. Another followed, and another. He could barely see their shapes through the fog, but they looked humanoid. Feminine. Ethan reached for his pistol, keeping silent. The girl trembled and closed her eyes. He whispered, "Who are they?" Her voice was barely a breath. "Hunters." Outside, something touched the metal of his ship. A faint metallic tap echoed through the cabin. Then silence. Ethan aimed his pistol at the door, heart racing. The tapping stopped. Then, nothing but the sound of wind again. Minutes passed before he lowered the weapon. He turned to the girl, who was staring at him with wide, frightened eyes. "They're gone," he said softly. She shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They never leave. They wait." Lightning flashed outside, lighting her face for a second. In that moment, Ethan realized something chilling. Her tears glowed faintly, just like the storm, and when thunder rolled again, her whisper echoed in his mind like a warning from another world. "They will find you too." The storm had passed, but silence was worse. Outside the wrecked escape pod, the forest glowed faintly blue under two pale moons. Every leaf shimmered with tiny sparks of light. It was beautiful, but wrong. Nothing in nature should move like that, not even on another world. Inside, Ethan Cole couldn't sleep. The alien girl he rescued lay under a blanket, her breathing soft but uneven. She was still weak, though her wound had healed faster than any human wound should. He watched the rise and fall of her chest, wondering what kind of being could recover like that. He checked his oxygen supply again. 40 hours left. Not much time to fix the ship or find help. But somehow that didn't feel like his biggest problem anymore. He kept hearing sounds. Soft footsteps outside, whispers that vanished when he turned his head. Once he thought he saw a face in the window reflection, glowing eyes watching. He told himself it was just the wind. Then the girl stirred. Her silver eyes opened, reflecting the dim red light. She looked confused, as if she had just remembered who she was. Ethan spoke gently. "Hey, you're safe here. I'm Ethan." She blinked a few times, trying to form words. Her voice came broken and slow. Ethan? "Yeah, that's me." She hesitated, then touched her chest. "Lyra." Her name sounded like the wind itself, soft but strong. Ethan smiled a little. "Lyra, nice to meet you, I think." She looked around, her eyes narrowing. "Where?" "Crash site. My ship's down. I found you out there." Lyra didn't answer. Her eyes darted toward the door. Her breathing grew quick, like she could hear something he couldn't. Ethan frowned. "You okay?" She whispered, "They come again." Before he could ask, a soft hum filled the air. The lights on the control panel flickered, even though the power was off. Then he heard it, voices, faint and distant. Not human voices. They were melodic, like a song carried on the wind, but underneath the melody he could feel intent. It wasn't language. It was something deeper, like the planet itself was speaking. Lyra pressed her hands over her ears, shaking her head. "Too close," she muttered. They watched the saver. Ethan's blood ran cold. "The saver? You mean me?" She nodded weakly. "You touched marked blood. Now, you glow to them." Ethan looked down at his hands. For a moment he thought he saw faint blue dust there, glowing under his skin. He rubbed it away, but the glow stayed. He grabbed his scanner again. Still dead. The storm had fried it beyond repair. "Lyra," he said carefully. "Who are they?" She didn't meet his eyes. "Hunters. The daughters of the storm." "Hunters? They're after you?" Her silence was the only answer he needed. The whispering outside grew louder, closer. Ethan crawled toward the window and peeked out. Between the trees he saw shapes, tall, slender figures with glowing tattoos across their arms. They moved without sound, their eyes like tiny moons. Ethan felt a chill crawl down his spine. "They found us," Lyra clutched his arm. "Don't fight. They test before kill." "Test?" She nodded slowly. "They watch, they wait. They choose." Ethan didn't like that at all. The whispers turned into a rhythm, like chanting. The orbs of light began to swirl above the ground in patterns, drawing faint symbols in the air. For a moment it was almost hypnotic. Then all at once the lights went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Ethan held his pistol tight, listening. His own heartbeat sounded like thunder in his chest. Then a knock, soft, 3 times on the metal wall. He froze. Another knock, this time from the other side of the pod. Then a third from the roof. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly in the dark. They marked the safe circle, she whispered. What? The trial starts. Suddenly bright blue symbols flared across the ground outside the pod, forming a ring around them. Ethan stared, unable to move. The air vibrated with energy. He could feel the circle humming under his boots even from inside. Lyra whispered a word in her language, her voice trembling. Sareth, what does that mean? She looked at him sadly. It means chosen. Ethan didn't understand. Chosen for what? Rescue? Death? He wanted to ask, but before he could speak, the forest fell silent again. No whispers. No wind. Yeah. Just the hum of the circle fading away. He waited an hour before daring to open the door. The outside world looked the same. Wet soil, broken trees, pale moonlight. But when he stepped out, his boot pressed into something strange. The mud had been carved with dozens of symbols, curved lines and dots arranged in spirals. He knelt to inspect one. It glowed faintly blue, then dimmed. What the hell? He whispered. Lyra came beside him, her step slow. She knelt too, touching one of the symbols. Safe, she said quietly. They let us live for now. Ethan looked around. Safe? You call this safe? She met his eyes with a calm that scared him more than anything. You saved one of their blood. You are under watch, not death, he frowned. That doesn't make me feel better. Lyra looked at the trees, her expression distant. Tomorrow they come. You will see. Ethan stared at the glowing marks one last time before turning back toward the pod. Somewhere in the forest, something called out. A low, deep echo that didn't sound like any creature he knew. He felt a strange pull in his chest, like the planet itself was breathing with him. He didn't know if it was fear or fate, but one thing was certain. He wasn't alone anymore. As he closed the pod door, Lyra whispered something under her breath. It wasn't in English, but the tone was clear, soft, mournful, and full of warning. Ethan didn't need a translator to understand. Whatever was coming next, it wasn't just a visit. Morning came slowly on the strange planet. The rain had stopped, but the sky was still filled with thin, glowing clouds that shimmered like metal. The forest around Ethan's crash site looked peaceful now. Too peaceful. He stepped outside the pod, stretching his stiff legs. The air smelled sweet, almost like wet flowers. But the peace didn't fool him. He still remembered the whispering voices from the night before. The glowing symbols were still there in the mud, faint but clear. Ethan crouched beside them, tracing one with his finger. It was smooth, carved deep, and still warm. What do they mean? He asked quietly. Lyra stood behind him, her silver eyes calm but distant. Her blue skin shimmered faintly in the morning light. They are the mark of my people, she said softly. A sign of choice. Choice? Ethan frowned. I didn't choose anything. She looked at him with a sad smile. They did. Before he could reply, the wind changed. It wasn't just air moving. It felt alive, like a wave of awareness sweeping through the trees. The leaves began to hum and the ground pulsed under his boots. Lyra's voice grew tense. They come. Ethan reached for his pistol, scanning the forest. Who's coming? The tribe, she said. The sisters of the storm. From between the silver trees, shapes began to move. Tall figures wrapped in glowing veils, each carrying a long spear that glowed faintly at the tip. Their eyes shone like liquid silver, and their movements were too smooth, too graceful to be human. Ethan's heartbeat quickened. Lyra? Friends of yours? She lowered her gaze. Family, but not like before. The figures stepped into the open. There were 6 of them, 5 warriors and 1 taller woman who walked in front. Her presence was powerful. Her skin was pale blue with markings of white light across her face. Her armor was made of crystal that pulsed gently with every step. Ethan stood his ground, though every instinct screamed to run. The tall woman stopped a few feet away and looked straight at him. Her voice when she spoke was calm but sharp like ice. You touched one of our blood. You carried her from the storm. Ethan swallowed hard. She was dying, I just helped. The woman tilted her head slightly. Humans do not help what they fear. I didn't know what she was, he said. I just saw someone who needed saving. The woman's eyes narrowed. And now you are part of her thread. Our world remembers what touches it. Ethan didn't understand, but he could tell arguing wouldn't help. He looked at Lyra. You could maybe translate the weird spiritual stuff. Lyra stepped forward slowly, bowing her head to the tall woman. Elder Syra, she said softly. He saved me. I swear it. He means no harm. The elder's eyes softened just a little. You speak for him? Yes, Lyra said. He gave life back to one of the storm's daughters. That must count, the other warriors whispered among themselves. One of them said something sharp in their language, her tone full of distrust. Syra raised her hand. Silence returned. She looked at Ethan again. Human, she said, her voice low. Long ago your kind came here. You brought fire, metal, and death. Many of our kind fell. Ethan felt his stomach twist. That wasn't me. Maybe not, she said. But the blood remembers. The wind grew stronger. The glowing symbols in the mud began to pulse again, brighter now. Syra looked down at them. The marks accepted you. That means you live, but life has a cost. Ethan tightened his grip on his weapon. What kind of cost? She stepped closer. A test. The word hung in the air like thunder. Lyra turned to her, panic in her eyes. No, he doesn't understand our ways. Syra's gaze was unchanging. Then he will learn. If he truly carries a pure heart, the storm will not take him. Two of the warriors stepped forward and took Ethan's arms. Though not roughly, he didn't fight. There was no point. These women were faster, stronger, and clearly in control of the land. Syra spoke again. He will come with us to the city of Arendor. There, he will face the trial of the sky. Ethan looked at Lyra, trying to find some hint of what that meant. Her eyes were full of fear. Arendor is sacred, she whispered. No outsider ever enters. The warriors began to move, guiding Ethan toward the forest path. The air shimmered as they walked. The trees seemed to open before them, branches bending as if showing respect. The deeper they went, the darker it became. Bioluminescent vines lit the path, casting ghostly blue light across their faces. Strange animals watched from the shadows, some with wings like glass, others crawling on long, transparent legs. Ethan's thoughts were a mix of fear and awe. The forest was alive, and every heartbeat of it seemed aware of him. They walked for hours until the trees thinned, revealing a valley below, a vast city made of crystal towers and silver bridges. It looked like light itself had been sculpted into buildings. Rivers of glowing energy flowed through the streets. Ethan stopped in his tracks. This is impossible. Lyra looked at him softly. This is Arendor, home of the Skyborn. Syra turned to him one last time as they approached the city gates. Human Ethan, she said, you saved one of us. Now you must prove that your kind can still be trusted. Her eyes glowed brighter. Tomorrow you face the storm's truth. Ethan's pulse quickened. The city lights reflected in his eyes like fire. He didn't know what the trial was, but he knew one thing. Whatever it was, it would change everything. Ethan didn't sleep that night. The alien city of Arendor was too strange, too alive. The buildings weren't made of stone or metal, they grew. Crystal walls shimmered like ice and pulsed with faint blue light as if they breathed. The streets were quiet, but the air was filled with a low hum, a sound that came from everywhere and nowhere. He sat on a balcony carved into living glass, looking down at the glowing rivers below. Lyra sat beside him, silent. The moons of the planet hung above like twin eyes watching. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. You said they'll test me. What does that mean? What kind of test? Lyra didn't look at him. Not of strength. Not of mind. It is a test of what you carry inside. My heart? He asked. She nodded. Yes. The tribe believes the storm sees truth. It cannot be lied to. If you pass, you live. If not... She stopped there, her voice fading like wind in the leaves. Ethan rubbed his face. And you? You believe this? I believe the storm listens, she said softly. And it never forgives lies. He didn't like that answer. By morning, the whole city seemed to know about him. Wherever he walked, eyes followed, curious, cold, and wary. The alien women whispered to one another, their voices light as music. Some bowed to Lyra. Others stared at Ethan like he was a shadow from their nightmares. Elder Syra met him in a vast open hall carved from a single crystal. The ceiling was high enough to vanish into mist. Patterns of light floated across the walls, forming symbols that changed shape like water. Syra stood at the center, surrounded by glowing orbs. Ethan Cole, she said, her voice echoing. The storm accepted you once. Now you will face its heart. Ethan looked around uneasy. And if I fail? Then you return to the dust, Syra said calmly. As all who lie do. Lyra tried to step forward, but two guards stopped her. Her voice trembled. Please, he doesn't understand our rights. Syra's eyes softened only slightly. Then may the storm teach him. The orbs rose into the air. The hall darkened. Ethan's pulse quickened as a ring of light formed beneath his feet. Do not move, Syra warned. The storm sees motion as fear. Ethan tried to stay still. The air around him thickened, warm and electric. Then came the sound like 1,000 whispers layered over one another. He looked up and saw a column of energy forming above him, spinning faster and faster. Suddenly the world disappeared. He stood in a forest again, but not the same one. This place felt real and unreal at the same time. The sky was black, the trees silver, and the ground glowed faintly blue. He was alone, or so he thought. A child's voice echoed nearby. Help! Please help! Ethan turned and saw a small alien child trapped under a fallen tree, crying. He ran forward, grabbing at the trunk. It didn't budge. Hold on, I've got you, he shouted, then another sound, crackling flames. The forest around him began to burn, blue fire crawling up the trees. He could feel the heat, smell the smoke. He looked back. In the distance he saw a path, an open way out. He could escape. But the child was still trapped. His heart pounded. No, not again, he whispered. I'm not leaving anyone. He grabbed a metal shard from the ground and used it as a lever. His muscles screamed as he pushed. The tree lifted just enough for the child to crawl free. Run! He shouted. The child vanished into the light. A moment later, the ground gave way beneath him. He fell into darkness. Ethan woke up lying on the crystal floor of the hall, gasping for air. His clothes were wet with sweat, his heart racing. The storm image above him had faded, but the whispers lingered for a moment before falling silent. Elder Sira stood over him, her expression unreadable. You chose the fire, she said quietly. He blinked. I saved the child. Yes, she said. Even when you could have lived. Lyra rushed to his side, kneeling beside him. Her silver eyes shimmered. He passed, didn't he? Sira didn't answer right away. She stared at Ethan for a long moment, then gave a small nod. The storm found truth in him. The guards lowered their weapons. The tension in the room faded like mist in sunlight. Ethan sat up slowly, still trembling. That was real? Sira's lips curved slightly. Real enough to judge your heart. She stepped closer, her glowing eyes reflecting in his. Few outsiders have ever passed the storm's test. You did not act to survive. You acted to save. That is rare, even among us. Lyra smiled through tears. I told you. He has light. But before Ethan could reply, another voice spoke from the shadows, one of the younger warriors. Light brings change, she said coldly. And change brings death. A hush fell across the hall. Syra turned toward the warrior but said nothing. Ethan felt the chill of those words. He had no idea what they meant, but he could see it in their eyes. Fear. Not of him, but of what his presence meant. Lyra helped him stand. You live, she whispered. But the storm's mark will follow you now. He looked down at his hands and froze. A faint blue glow pulsed beneath his skin, moving with his heartbeat. Syra watched silently, then turned away. The storm chose you, Ethan Cole. Whether that is a blessing or a curse, only time will tell. That night, as the city of light slept, Ethan stood alone under the twin moons. The glow in his veins hadn't faded. It felt like something ancient had touched him, claimed him. He didn't know what awaited him, but one thought echoed in his mind, stronger than fear. Whatever this storm is. It's not done with me yet. Days passed since Ethan's trial, yet the glow under his skin never faded. Every beat of his heart sent a faint blue shimmer through his veins. Sometimes, when the city was quiet, he could feel it hum, like something inside him was alive, whispering in a language he couldn't understand. The people of Arendor treated him differently now. No longer a prisoner, but not one of them either. The warriors nodded when he passed, but their eyes carried unease. To them, he was touched by the storm, a living omen. Ethan spent most of his time in the high gardens, where crystal flowers opened only at night, and the rivers flowed with glowing light. Lyra often joined him there, her presence calm, her voice soft like wind through glass. You're changing, she said one evening, watching the glow on his hands. He flexed his fingers uneasily. Feels like I'm carrying a battery inside me. Doesn't hurt, just wrong. Lyra looked away. The storm doesn't give without reason. What reason? She hesitated. Maybe it marked you for something greater. Or maybe it's a warning. Ethan sighed, looking out across the hills. The city shimmered below them, alive with lights that looked like fireflies trapped in crystal jars. I didn't ask for any of this. Lyra gave a faint smile. No one ever does. Later that night, as he sat alone by the balcony, Ethan's wrist communicator suddenly flickered to life. A weak signal. He froze. The small device had been dead since the crash. He tapped it quickly. The screen blinked and a distorted voice came through, metallic, broken but familiar. Cole. AI Unit Solace. Searching for survivor. Ethan's heart jumped. Solace? You're still online? Affirmative. Partial system recovery. Scanning. Distress beacon detected, he frowned. That's impossible. I didn't activate any beacon. Incorrect, the AI said. Signal broadcasting for 36 hours. Origin. Local. Ethan looked at the glowing mark on his arm. The realization struck him like a punch. The storm had left something inside him, something sending out a signal. He whispered, "It's me." "The beacon's me," the AI continued. "Rescue team en route. Estimated arrival 72 hours. Ethan froze. "No cancel, abort signal." "Command override not recognized," the AI replied. "Signal cannot be stopped." The transmission cut out. The light on his communicator died again. Ethan leaned back against the wall, cold sweat running down his neck. If a human rescue team was coming, they'd land with scanners, drones, maybe weapons. And if they found Arendor, the tribe, the outcome would not be peace. He looked out at the alien city glowing beneath the moons and felt something tighten in his chest. They would never survive a human encounter. The next morning, he told Lyra everything. Her face turned pale as he spoke. "The storm made you a signal," she said quietly. "You're calling your own kind without knowing." "I didn't want this," he said. "But they'll come. You have to warn your people." Lyra shook her head. "They won't believe me. To them, humans are bringers of ruin." Ethan frowned. Ruin, her eyes filled with old sadness. "Many seasons ago, a ship came from the stars. It brought metal fire that burned our forests. My grandmother said the sky wept for days." He felt his throat tighten. "That wasn't all of us. Not everyone's like that." "I know," she said softly. "But the tribe remembers pain more than mercy." A distant hum interrupted them. A low vibration that made the air tremble. Lyra turned her head sharply. "Do you hear that?" Ethan nodded. "Engines." But not human ones. They ran to the outer balcony. Across the hills, dark shapes were moving, strange flying machines gliding low over the trees. Their surfaces shimmered like liquid metal. "The hunters," Lyra whispered. "They've come. After me?" "After us," she said. "The storm's mark draws all who serve it. They think you are a weapon." Ethan's chest burned where the glowing mark pulsed. "Great," he muttered. "Human beacon, alien curse. Can I just catch a break?" But there was no time for jokes. The flying shapes circled closer, silent and precise. Then from the city below, alarm lights flared. The crystal towers began to hum with power, their surfaces hardening into shields of light. Lyra grabbed his hand. "We must go to the Elder." In the council hall, Elder Sira stood before a map of glowing lines, her face calm but grim. "The shadow has come beyond the hills," she said. "We knew the storm's child would bring it." Ethan stepped forward. "If you're blaming me, don't. I didn't call them." Syra's silver eyes burned like stars. "The storm marked you for a reason. You are the bridge or the blade. We do not yet know which." He clenched his fists. "If you fight them, they'll destroy this place. You have to hide, not attack." Syra shook her head slowly. "We do not hide. Arendor stands or it falls with honor." Ethan turned to Lyra. "You can't let them die for me." She looked at him, voice trembling. "Maybe the storm didn't choose you to bring war, Ethan. Maybe it chose you to end it." Before he could answer, the ground shuddered. A distant explosion shook the crystal walls. One of the guards ran in, shouting, "The sky burns!" They rushed outside. Over the horizon, dark clouds rolled in, not from weather, but from engines. The flying machines unleashed streaks of blue fire upon the forests. The city's shields glowed brighter, deflecting the first wave, but barely. Ethan's communicator crackled again. "Rescue ship Helios entering orbit. Signal confirmed. Preparing descent." He stared at the sky, torn between two worlds, one he belonged to by birth and one he was bound to by choice. Lyra touched his arm gently.
What will you do?
He looked at her, then at the glowing mark on his skin. It pulsed faster like a heartbeat. I don't know, he said, but I won't let either side burn the other. Far above, human ships descended through the clouds. Below, the storm tribes prepared for war. And in the middle of it all stood Ethan Cole, the man caught between two worlds, carrying the light of both. He looked up at the sky and whispered, "Let them come. But this time they'll see what a human heart can really do." The sky was no longer silver. It burned. Human ships had broken through the clouds like metal angels, raining blue fire across the distant forest. The once peaceful world of Arendor now echoed with sirens, roars, and the crackle of falling crystal. From the balcony of the council hall, Ethan Cole watched the flames rise beyond the hills. The alien towers pulsed like wounded hearts, their glow flickering as the city's shields strained to hold. Behind him, Elder Sira spoke calmly, though her eyes betrayed fear. "The storm warned us. Now it delivers judgment." Ethan turned to her, fists tight. "They're not here for war, they're here for me." Sira's silver gaze sharpened. "Then give yourself to them." He froze. "What?"
"If your presence calls the sky's fire, then your leaving may stop it." Lyra stepped between them.
"No, you cannot send him out there alone." Sira's voice stayed firm. "We have no choice, child. Our shields fail. Our people burn." Ethan looked from Sira to Lyra, his heart twisting. He had wanted to go home ever since he crashed here. Now, for the first time, he wasn't sure where home even was. They ran through the glowing corridors as the city shook. Above, the great towers of Arendor bent under the weight of falling fire. Energy shields rippled like water, bursting where the bombardment struck hardest. Alien warriors moved swiftly through the streets, guiding children and elders into the lower tunnels. Lyra led Ethan through a narrow passage lit by flickering blue flames. "We must reach the core," she said breathlessly. "If you send your signal there, it will reach the human ships directly. Maybe they will stop." Ethan hesitated. "You want me to talk to them?" Her voice trembled. "They will listen to you. You are one of them." He wanted to believe that. He really did. But he knew how command ships thought. When they saw strange towers, glowing energy, and alien life, they wouldn't see beauty. They'd see a threat. As they reached the central chamber, the floor pulsed with soft light. The city's heart, a sphere of swirling crystal, hung in the air, humming with power. It was beautiful and fragile, like the planet's soul made visible. Ethan connected his wrist communicator to the sphere. Sparks leapt across his skin. His veins glowed brighter, reacting to the energy. The storm's mark inside him burned like fire. "Solace AI," he said. "Transmit live signal to Helios Command." "Authorization, Cole Delta 7. The communicator crackled. A familiar voice came through, sharp and metallic. "Lieutenant Ethan Cole, you're alive." "Captain Reyes?" he said, almost smiling. "You found me." "Yes, your beacon drew us in. We're tracking your position now. The voice paused. "Ethan, what is that structure behind you?" Ethan looked back at the glowing heart of Arendor. "It's not a weapon. It's the city's core. Negative. Our scans show a massive power source, possibly hostile." "No!" he shouted. "They're people. They saved my life." There was silence on the line. Then Rhea's voice turned cold. "Lieutenant, you are under alien influence. We're securing the site for safety. Evac in 10 minutes. Do not interfere." The signal ended. Ethan stared at the dead communicator. The choice hung heavy in his chest. Go home or stand here and fight for those who had every reason to hate his kind. Lyra touched his hand, her silver eyes pleading. "You must choose, Ethan. If they destroy the core, my people die. Everything dies." He felt the glow under his skin pulse faster, almost alive. The storm's mark responded to his heartbeat. For the first time, he understood it wasn't a curse. It was a connection. He looked at Lyra. "If I use this energy, can I stop the bombardment?" She hesitated. "The storm's power is beyond us. It could burn you from inside." Ethan smiled faintly. "Guess there's only one way to find out." Outside, the human ships descended lower, forming attack formations. Ethan stepped out onto the open platform, the wind roaring around him. His skin glowed brighter, his eyes reflecting the storm's light. He raised his arm toward the sky. "Solace," he said calmly. "Override beacon. Redirect all signal energy through host." The AI's voice answered, confused. "Warning. Energy overload will cause biological failure. I know. The mark on his chest ignited. Blue-white lightning arced from his body into the sky. The air cracked open with sound. For a moment, he became a bridge of light between the city and the heavens. The human ships above jerked violently as their systems shorted out. Their engines sputtered. One by one, their lights went dark. The bombardment stopped. Lyra watched from the balcony, tears glowing on her cheeks. The city's energy pulse began to slow. The core dimmed, returning to calm. Ethan fell to his knees, smoke rising from his hands. His breath came shallow and fast. Lyra ran to him, catching him before he collapsed. "You did it," she whispered. "You stopped them." Ethan smiled weakly. "Guess the storm finally picked the right fool." Syra appeared behind them, her eyes wide with awe. "He carries the storm's will," she murmured. "He is no longer just human." Lyra pressed her forehead against his. "Stay with me." But his eyes were closing, his voice fading like the last echo of thunder. "Tell them." "We're not their enemy." Above, the clouds parted. The storm that once raged endlessly was now still, glowing softly like dawn. Arendor lived, and beneath the quiet sky, Ethan Cole, human engineer, stranger, savior, lay in the arms of the alien girl he had once saved from the storm. The storm was gone. For the first time since his crash, the skies above Arendor were clear. No blue lightning, no burning clouds, only soft, golden light washing over the crystal towers. The air smelled of rain and new life. The war had ended before it truly began. But in the quiet heart of the city, Ethan Cole lay still. His body was broken but not lifeless. Faint pulses of blue light ran through his veins. Slower now, like dying stars. Lyra sat beside him, holding his hand. Her silver eyes were full of tears. "The storm touched him too deeply," said a soft voice behind her. Elder Sira stood at the doorway, her face calm but her tone heavy. "He is not dying. Not as we do. The energy within him changes him. He may never be fully human again." Lyra looked up at her. "Then what will he be?" Sira's gaze drifted to the glowing horizon. "Something new. Something between." Ethan stirred weakly. His eyes opened halfway, glowing faintly blue. His voice was rough. "Still here, huh?" Lyra leaned closer, smiling through her tears. "You shouldn't be." He tried to laugh, but it came out as a breath. "Wouldn't be the first time." Outside, the city was rebuilding. The human ships that had descended from the sky now floated powerless, their engines dead, their systems silenced by the storm energy Ethan had unleashed. Some had crashed softly in the far plains. Others remained suspended in the air like ghosts, their metal husks reflecting sunlight. Sira and her warriors moved among the wrecks, watching the humans awaken from confusion. They were soldiers, but frightened ones, lost, cut off from their command. "Do we strike?" asked one of the warriors. Sira shook her head. "No. The storm has already spoken. When the soldiers saw the tribe approaching, they raised their weapons, but the weapons did not work. Their power cells were dead, their targeting systems blank. Instead of fear, the warriors offered food and water. Slowly, the humans lowered their arms. From the high tower, Lyra watched it all and whispered, "He did what no storm ever could." Days passed. Ethan regained strength little by little, though the glow in his body never left. The tribe began to call him the Bridge Walker, the one who connected fire and sky. Lyra stayed by his side. Sometimes she told him stories of her world, how the trees spoke in light, how rivers carried songs, how storms were not just weather but living memories of the planet itself. Ethan listened quietly, feeling small in such a vast, beautiful world. One evening, as the twin moons rose, he stood on the balcony overlooking the valley. The wrecks of the human ships were scattered across the plains, their lights dim. Some of the soldiers had begun helping the tribe repair the forests they burned. It was strange seeing enemies planting seeds together. Lyra joined him, standing close enough that their shoulders touched. "They're learning," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Maybe it's about time," she looked up at him. "You could go back, you know. When your people rebuild their ships, they'll want to take you home." Ethan stared at the stars. Home. The word felt distant now, like a dream that no longer fit him. "Maybe I don't belong there anymore," he said quietly. "The storm gave me a second chance. I should use it here." Lyra's voice trembled slightly. "Then you choose to stay?" He turned to her, his expression calm but firm. "I stayed the moment I saved you, Lyra. Everything since then just proved it. Her eyes shimmered like liquid silver. Then this world will remember your name. He shook his head gently. No, let it remember peace instead. Later that night, Ethan walked alone through the quiet gardens of Arendor. The trees glowed faintly as he passed, reacting to his presence. It was as if the planet itself recognized him now, no longer a stranger but part of its living rhythm. He paused beside the crystal river, looking down at his reflection. For the first time he saw something both human and alien staring back. His eyes, once gray, now shimmered faint blue. His heartbeat echoed softly in the water like a distant drum. He smiled. Guess I really did become the storm. Behind him a faint voice spoke, a familiar tone, metallic yet gentle. Lieutenant Ethan Cole, said the voice of the Solace AI from the damaged communicator at his belt. Systems partially restored. Awaiting orders. Ethan looked at the device and chuckled softly. Orders, huh? Yeah, I've got one. He looked toward the sky where human ships still floated dead and silent. Tell them this world isn't theirs to take. Tell them it's home now. The communicator blinked once in acknowledgement. Message sent. Ethan clipped it back onto his belt and turned toward the horizon. At dawn, the people of Arendor gathered in the valley. Humans stood beside aliens, planting new crystal seeds into the soil. The burned forests would grow again, half metal, half light, alive with the mix of two worlds. Lyra watched Ethan from a distance as the rising sun touched his skin. The glow within him brightened, casting soft blue light around him. He is no longer just man, whispered Elder Sira beside her. He is the bond that even the storm could not break. Lyra nodded, her heart full. No, he is simply Ethan, and as the sun climbed higher, the man who once fell from the stars stood tall upon the soil of his new home, a symbol of hope between species that once feared each other. The storm that had once tried to destroy him had instead remade him. And from that day on, when the winds of Arendor howled across the hills, the people would say it carried his voice, calm, steady, and full of promise. A human heart that chose to stay.